They call them dumps, big, massive dumps. In the case of San Francisco, I'm specifically referring to your taxpayer money because they are dumping it on a $1.7 million bathroom. And it is a small bathroom.
Chow.
One toilet, and it should not be costing $1.7 million. So let's talk about where this is. It's in Noe Valley, okay? And there is a beautiful little like park / town square type situation going on. People like to go there, hang out, read a book. It looks lovely with one exception. There's nowhere for people to relieve themselves. And so the community has been asking for a bathroom. And local politicians wanted to give themselves a pat on the back after they secured the funding necessary for this bathroom. Now the toilet, just one loo in 150 square feet of space, is projected to cost $1.7 million, about the same as a single family home in this wildly overpriced city. And it won't be ready until 2025. We can go build it over the weekend for like $50. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating there. That's definitely hyperbole, to be fair. But who's padding their pockets? That's what they need to look into. So 2 years to build one bathroom with one toilet, $1.7 million. Fun fact, by the way, the Golden Gate Bridge took less than 4.5 years to build. I didn't know that. That's kind of incredible. Now the effort was led by Assembly Member Matt Haney, who secured money from the state and stated that he heard loud and clear that the community needed a bathroom. They told me 1.7 million and I got 1.7 million. I didn't have the option of bringing home less of the bacon when it comes to building a toilet. A half a toilet or a toilet maybe someday is not much use to anyone. This is state money, by the way. And I'm actually pretty furious about this because California is, like, the politicians here are so deeply corrupt. They're like in bed with real estate developers, with private businesses. People are definitely padding their pockets here. The whole public-private partnership is garbage because at the end of the day, we all get scammed out of our taxpayer money and we're paying a lot in state taxes. Well, the people who do pay their taxes. So, working Americans who see a huge portion of their money go towards state taxes while they live in squalor, there's trash everywhere, while we continue to have an affordable housing crisis, while you literally have mentally ill individuals both dying on the streets and also attacking people on the streets. Stabbings have now become commonplace in Los Angeles, and it is insane, but it's okay. We don't have apparently the funding to deal with the mental health issues and the drug addiction issues and the housing issues in this freaking state. We do have the $1.7 million for a one toilet bathroom that's gonna be 150 square feet. Someone is padding their goddamn pockets, and we know it. I'm so fed up with California. Look, I gotta be real with you guys. I can't stand it when liberals mock Republicans who talk about how bad California is. California is bad, it's real bad, and it's embarrassing. So mock the right wing all you want, they've got a point. California is so poorly governed. I mean, you really have to live here to understand how bad it is.
Yeah, well, it's a mixed bag, right? California was relatively well governed for a long time. That's why we have these thriving economies and industry here, and we lead the world in many things. We're like the 4th largest economy in the world. But lately, yes, the corruption is out of control. And look, if you're a Democrat, you say no, corporate Democrats are awesome, so California is perfect. But if you're a progressive, you have no reason to defend corporate Democrats that are engaged in the corruption. So I'm gonna get to 2 important points here in a second, but first a couple of fun facts. That 1.7 million that they mentioned for a one-family home, don't get it twisted. It's not a one-family home with 4 bedrooms. No, it's a 1-bedroom apartment that's going for 1.7 million on average in San Francisco.
Literally a 1-bedroom apartment.
Unbelievable how expensive San Francisco is. Unbelievable, okay? Totally out of control. Second fun fact, and don't poo-poo these facts. Golden Gate Bridge.
I'm really pissed off.
Okay, we're here all day. I got more for you guys in a sec. Golden Gate Bridge, it takes so long to clean that by the time they finish cleaning, they have to go back to the beginning and start cleaning again.
You guys.
Okay, and they built that thing in 4.5 years. This glorified porta potty is gonna take 2 years. Okay, so now I wanna give you 2 important points here. One is about the waste of the money, right?
Yes.
So we passed HHH here in California that's supposed to help the homeless. It was billions of dollars.
Yeah.
They built like 12 homes.
Yeah.
And each one of those homes, it took $750,000.
Oh, more.
Or more to build them.
Yep.
On average, right? I'm exaggerating about the 12, but not by much, right? They just an unbelievably small number of homes, right?
Yep.
And so, by the way, though, those homes still cost less than the bathroom in San Francisco, okay? But they're just literally flushing our money down the toilet here, okay? And so now that was us going number 1. Now let's go number 2. So this is the important part. Where are they sending the money? To their 2 top donors.
Yes.
That's why all of these projects cost so much. Construction and real estate companies, those are giant donors to politicians in the state. Democrats control the state, so they give most of the money to the Democrats in this case. Nationally, they give most of the money to Republicans because Republicans usually control at the national level. You go to Ohio or another state that Republicans control, the construction companies will give all the money to Republicans, okay? Yep. So now the second set of folks is the unions. So there's huge union contracts to build these houses, bathrooms, etc. And are those loaded up with pork? You betcha, okay? So we're fair here. We're not gonna tell you, oh, the corporations are getting all this money and hide the fact that the unions are also part of the pork here. The reality is both of those organizations give giant money to the Democratic Party in California, and they get way more money back from the California, but they don't get it back from the politicians, they get it back from us, the taxpayers.
I'm so sick of the corruption, obviously throughout our whole country. But on a local level, it is so brazen and disgusting. I mean, how many city council members have been prosecuted in Los Angeles already? Jose Huizar, raided by the FBI because of his pay-to-play schemes with real estate developers. Okay, disgusting, disgusting. So like, think about the people in Los Angeles County who said, yes, we wanna help the homeless, even though what we're voting on right now would raise our taxes, which are already incredibly high in this state. We will fund it, we just wanna get people housed. And the county took the money and they're like, hey, yo, where's our developer friends? Where you at, where you at? They inflate the price of construction on purpose to pad their pockets. This is why public-private partnerships don't work. And I consider the public nonprofit partnership to also be equally disastrous in the state of California, and particularly in Los Angeles County. These nonprofits have been a complete and utter disaster. And like, even though they're nonprofits, the entire like business model at the end of the day is to sustain a job, sustain their livelihood. They're perpetuating the problems that we already have in this goddamn state. It is, you guys, it is mismanaged. And we need to be real about that, because if we don't do anything about it, we just pretend like, oh, it's a right-wing talking point. People who are working their asses off in this insanely expensive state are gonna continue getting robbed, and we don't deserve it. Anyway, so let's talk about these loser politicians. Let's talk about them. Because this guy, Matt Haney, he's like, I secured the 1.7 million for this one toilet. I'm so proud. So he was gonna have a press conference to tout what he had done, right? So they ended up canceling the press conference because guess what? The local community found out that it was gonna cost $1.7 million and they were enraged. So they just ended up canceling it. They're like, oh, it turns out that taxpayers in the state don't want to pay $1.7 million for one toilet. One toilet.
Yeah, local television news is accidentally covering stories that a lot of people are angry about and that are helping to get the word out. So in this case in Northern California, they went and interviewed the guys who had actually asked for the bathrooms in the local park. It's going to the park. And there's this one guy who was the biggest advocate for it. They asked him, he's like, $1.7 million? He's like, no, then I say no. Isn't that amazing? because the money's not coming from him or even that neighborhood. It's coming from all of California. So we're chipping in, et cetera. And he's like, no, I don't want it. That costs too much. I'll just do something else, okay?
Yeah.
I love that guy. Almost everyone they interviewed said, no, we don't want it if it costs that much.
Yeah, because it's it's obvious waste and someone's getting rich. Okay,
Yeah.
and I want to give you a little more information here because the Parks and Rec department, they were reached for comment. In a joint statement, the Park and Rec Department of Public Works said there are several reasons for the costs. This is all BS in my opinion, including the cost to build in the city and the rising construction costs for materials.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, the lumber went up $17. That's why we had to charge $1.7 million.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
There's more though, okay? It's important to note that public projects and their overall cost estimates don't just reflect the price of erecting structures. They include erecting the genitals of our corporate donors. They didn't say that. They include planning, drawing, permits, reviews, and public outreach. What public outreach? What public outreach? What public outreach? You guys don't outreach to anyone other than your goddamn donors and the people that you're helping pad their pockets with our taxpayer money. God, California politicians, there needs to be a purge. They're all garbage. Karen Bass, got an insane scholarship, $95,000 scholarship to get a master's degree at USC. And she's like, I did nothing wrong. They cleared me, I did nothing wrong. Immediately after that, you know what she did? She spearheaded legislation that was beneficial to universities like USC. Yeah, you did nothing wrong. I mean, that transactional relationship, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. I'm sick of it. Absolutely sick of it. It's disgusting.
Now, I gave credit to local news there, and I said it was accidentally they're doing the right thing because generally speaking, mainstream media and local news is the least guilty at this point here. In fact, they're slightly helping. But like LA Times, San Francisco Chronicle, all the big mainstream media are aid and abet this corruption.
1000%.
Okay.
Yes.
Because Karen Bass, the USC thing is obvious corruption, right? And the media's like, I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't think it's a big issue at all. Why are you doing advocacy?
How does a member of Congress who's making $174,000 a year to work maybe 6 months out of the year, how does she get to be the one to qualify for a $95,000 scholarship? Why? How? How does that make any sense?
No, they're just giving her $95,000 and then she gives them a bill. We've seen this movie 1,000 times, but so is everyone in mainstream media. Yet they still don't get it. Yet they still don't cover it. And they don't tell you what it actually, this is how they lost everyone. So right now, they did a poll the other day of who do you think is a threat to democracy, right? And then Trump it was in, I think, low 40s. Biden was in the high 30s. So that was kind of surprising. You know who had 59%? The highest of all of them? Mainstream media. The American people, when they asked, they said the #1 threat to American democracy, is mainstream media.
The top gaslighters in the country.
Yeah. And so isn't that amazing? But you never saw that. You know why? Because mainstream media doesn't tell you how much they're hated, despised, right? And whenever they talk about it, they go, yeah, crazy radical outsiders. Oh no, most people love our corporate propaganda, okay? So in this case, guys, look, at the national level, the biggest donors are drug companies, oil companies, and banks, right? Why do they give money? It's super obvious, so that the oil companies will get subsidies, the banks will get trillions of dollars printed at the Fed, and the Treasury will okay it, and the government will look the other way. And of course, drug companies literally have a monopoly. They can charge any price they want. They literally bribed all of our politicians, and even Obama when he was passing Obamacare. It's like, the drug companies are too powerful. I gave them the monopoly, so they'll help us pass the bill.
It's insane.
Help us pass the bill. That's admitting all of my senators are corrupt. And if the drug companies don't, grease them, we're not gonna pass the bill. How did mainstream media miss that, right? It was so obvious. We covered it, Young Turks covered it at the time. We're like, it's obvious they're bribing them, right? And at the local level, who is it? The #1 donors are not those companies. At the local level, the #1 donors are real estate companies, construction companies, and unions, okay? So that is why you'll see, especially Democratic states like California, as soon as there's anything involved in building, they're all over it. Billions, 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 billions. No accountability, runaway costs, And runaway costs are not the bug, they're the future.
Absolutely.
And why do we never have affordable housing? Why is there runaway homelessness in California? Because they never build affordable housing. They give the money to real estate interests, and then real estate interests build incredible high rises.
Mixed use.
Oh,
mixed
yeah.
use.
Mixed
if you're
use.
lucky, maybe 5 of those units can be, rented at market costs.
And market costs are already gigantic,
Come on.
right? But they're really building it for the rich to make billions. And all of the corrupt Democrats in California know that.
God, I can't stand that. You guys don't understand. Look, I have disdain for corporate Democrats on a federal level. But at the end of the day, I was born and raised in California. And the corruption among California Democrats, who have in some ways gamed the system to their advantage to ensure that they keep having super majorities in the state, they've just been a complete and utter disaster, and they have destroyed the state. They're oozing with corruption. The LA Times provides cover for them. Certainly Karen Bass, the way they covered that USC story was infuriating, absolutely infuriating. No, there's nothing wrong here. I mean, she's not being investigated. So since she's not being investigated, we're sure that she's free and clear. No wrongdoing here, even though it's clearly a transactional issue, clearly corruption. And she's running for mayor, great.
Now, mainstream media, in covering up the obvious corruption of the Democratic and Republican parties at the national and state level, is the #1 problem. Because if you all knew about it, you'd all be outraged. Even the guy who asked for the bathroom was outraged and said no. All you have to do is let people know, and they'll regulate on these guys. But unfortunately, that same poll that I mentioned to you earlier, there's only one group of people still left listening to mainstream media. It's 70% of Democratic voters. And that's why progressives that would actually fix all of these problems, the ones that are the uncorrupted in this country, that don't take corporate money, unfortunately they lose in primaries because mainstream media still has a vice grip on Democratic voters. And they tell them the corruption is wonderful, don't worry about it. It's not corruption, they're just talking to them. It just happens to be a real estate company. It's just a coincidence. No, vote for the corporate Democrat. They have your best interests in mind. So if we can just get Democratic voters to stop listening to mainstream media, we could actually rescue this country.
Yeah. Can we have fun now?
Please.
I thought that was gonna be a fun story, but apparently it really struck a nerve.
It
really
definitely
did.
triggered you.
Yeah, it
Yes.
did. Yeah, because I live in this state and I see how much I pay in taxes and how little I get. I get nothing in return, really. I mean, you don't. Like, everything is falling apart in this goddamn state. Everything. And I'm supposed to pretend like, no, California's the greatest state, everything is totally fine, Republicans are totally wrong. No, they're not wrong. California is a disaster scene.
And don't get us wrong.
I don't support Republicans. Republicans would make it far worse, I think.
Yeah, Crockett's gonna write a story about this. Republicans are just as corrupt. If you put Republicans in charge, they're gonna do the same goddamn schemes, except they're gonna get
Absolute
paid.
power corrupts, and in California, the Democratic Party has absolute power, period.
And Eric Olson, local progressive candidate, had the best line. Still, the great majority of progressive priorities and hence Democratic priorities theoretically don't pass in California. Why does all the corruption pass, but our priorities don't pass? Because Democrats have super majorities. We're not negotiating with Republicans, he said. We're negotiating with donors. And it's brazen, it's wide open in the public. And LA Times and San Francisco Chronicle and all the other mainstream media outlets are like, I can't see it, where is it? Where is it? I don't see it at all. Why? Because they also have money for public outreach. Public outreach goes to the media. Keep it real, keep it real. All of the money in politics ends up in the media's hands. That is why they never talk about it. There's billions of dollars on the line. David Schuster told me a story right on this show. He went talked to a general manager, did a story about money in politics at a big station, local news station, and the general manager was like, hell no, we're not running that story. And Schuster said, why? He said, money in politics is what paid for the salaries of everybody you're looking at. No, we get rich off. He didn't say rich, he said, we all get paid off of that, right? We're not gonna let you run a story about how money in politics is bad.
If I hear another Democrat in California talk about how all of our problems are because Reagan defunded the mental asylums, I'm gonna lose my mind, because I don't know if they know this. They've been in power for a very long time. citing Reagan, citing a politician from the 80s as the reason why everything's falling apart in California when the Democratic Party has been in power forever is stupid. So if you're a Democratic politician and you're blaming everything on a dead politician, wake up, you've got the power to change things. But honestly, at this point, I'm terrified of how they would implement programs like that, right? So which corporation or which nonprofit would they do a contract with to basically screw the taxpayers?
Oh my God, if they had to build an asylum, they'd be like, oh, no problem, we can build it right away. It's just $250 billion. Okay.
And by the way, the rail thing. We got to do a story on the California rail thing that was supposed to build rail from Los Angeles to San Francisco. We have poured like hundreds of billions of dollars into it's going nowhere. Gone.
There are no
going
reporters.
Nowhere.
There are no reporters in California. We hired Matt Sheffield partly as a national reporter, but half as a California reporter, because there isn't a single goddamn reporter in California. They're all like, oh, wonderful, the billions of dollars that the voters paid for have magically disappeared and there's 7 houses. Great job, Democrats, wonderful job, okay? It's just the worst press you could imagine, just totally, utterly corrupt. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.